Welcome to What's America Thinking. I'm Julia Manchester. This week, residents in Texas are reeling as the devastating Smokehouse Creek wildfire continues to rip through the panhandle and parts of Oklahoma. So far, only 37% of the fire is contained. Resources are pouring into the area, but it's already taken a massive toll on one of the state's largest industries, agriculture. Reporting from Nexstar Nation's KXAN in Austin is Texas Bureau reporter Ryan Chandler.
A desperate stampede, turning to a charred field of cattle that couldn't escape.
I've spent the last 15 years building this cow herd up.
Chance Bowers fears he lost as many as 200 cows at about $3,000 a head. That can be a debilitating financial strain.
You can lose it overnight, but we've been very blessed and very fortunate that we've only gonna lose 200, you know.
Thousands more cattle are feared dead across the region. Those who survived left with no water to drink or fields to graze. Many too badly burned to keep.
Their hooves are burned, beyond repair. Their udders are gone, so they'll no longer be able to nurse their calves. It's a real sad situation.
Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller is urging Texans to donate to the State of Texas Agriculture Relief Fund, the state's privately funded lifeline for one of our hardest industries.
The two highest occupations for suicide in the United States are veterans and farmers. And farmers are number one. People up in this country have missed 2 cotton crops in a row. So they're already struggling financially. Now, possibly they've lost all their livestock.
Ranchers in need are getting support from their neighbors in the Panhandle and across Texas. Volunteers bringing in hay to feed surviving animals amid the scorched grazing land.
Anytime I get the chance to help out there, I'd love to come help.
Ryan Chandler, KXAN News.
And on the ground now is reporter Mya Clark from Nexstar Nation's KAMR in Amarillo, Texas. Mya, thanks so much for joining us. You're in Hutchinson County, Texas, where the wildfire is still raging. What's the latest on containment?
Julia, today the Windy Deuce fire is still over 144,000 acres and is 81% contained as of this morning. The Smokehouse Creek fire, that's also the largest fire in the state of Texas history now, is 1,072,000 acres and 44% contained. Firefighters continue to mop up the areas and work on really containing the area and also strengthening their containment structures that they've put in place so that the fire does not spread any further than it already has.
How devastating has this been for people directly affected outside of those situations you just mentioned, including, people with homes, their farms, and their businesses?
So in Hemphill County, which is right next to Hutchinson County where we're at, 112 dwellings were destroyed and 47 families were displaced. And for Hutchinson County, where we're currently at, the current number of homes that have been destroyed isn't exactly sure right now, but we are currently in the Mesa Village area, and there are dozens of homes along this street that have been destroyed. You see over there that someone's car has been completely damaged in this fire, and so people are really just starting to return home now and pick up the pieces. And so another problem that people are facing are the health conditions, because some people, the air quality hasn't been great here, and so people are having difficulty breathing. And as you mentioned, this is a big agriculture area, and so people have lost much of their cattle. There are some people who start off with 10,000 cattle, and now it's down to 20. The feed that they had to feed their cattle is also lost, and so they're needing not only to replace their cattle, but to also replace the food and the fencing that helped protect their farms and ranches.
So, Mya, is there any hope in sight? What are you hearing from officials on an eventual end to this raging fire?
So right now from officials, what we're hearing is that the most dangerous part of the fire is over as wind conditions start to dwindle down again. And also with the cold front that we're experiencing, that's also helping contain the fires and get them completely out. But the Hutchinson County Emergency Management Liaison, Deidre Thomas, said that it could take up to 2 weeks for some of these fires to completely cool down. And so as people return to their homes, they're being encouraged to fill out those insurance claims as quickly as they possibly can and fill out the ISTAT forms as well, because they have about 30 days to report that damage. But another problem that people are facing here is that many of these homes are uninsured. And so their insurance companies aren't going to come in and help them. And so what they're trying to do at the local level is bring in as many resources as they can, whether it's the Texas insurance companies or whether it's just nonprofits that are willing to help with these, and really make sure that people are able to start recovering and bringing in and centralizing those resources in the areas that have been most impacted.
Mya Clark reporting from Hutchinson County, Texas. Thank you so much, and please stay safe out there.
Julia, thank you.
Joining us now, environmental justice attorney and executive director of the Energy Justice Law and Policy Center, Raya Salter. Thank you so much for being here. To jump right into it, you lived in Hawaii, where a devastating wildfire ripped through the island of Maui last year. Just before that, so much of North America, including here in D.C. and in New York, were affected by the Canadian wildfires, and we've just been talking about the situation in Texas. Are you surprised to see this level of devastation, and how is climate change contributing to these fires?
No, sadly, I'm not surprised. And we can expect more and more of these extreme weather events as we fail to tackle the climate crisis. Climate change absolutely was a factor in Maui. And in other places, what you see is in Hawaii, you saw native plants that non-native plants that got increasingly dry, and then with increasingly high temperatures, increase that wildfire risk. And that idea of increasing the length of wildfire seasons and having more tinderous trees and plants is exactly what is exacerbating these wildfires, and it is indeed being driven by the climate crisis.
Yeah, so my team came across this study from the Hamburg Institute of International Economics, and essentially the study showed that disasters like these in Texas, Hawaii, et cetera, help awareness in the short term or increase that awareness, but they don't usually lead to impactful change. How do we get people to move from anxiety to action?
That's exactly right. And it's extremely important. Key to it, I think, is not being so doom and gloom about it, in that there are things that we can do substantively to stop this from happening, from making the effects less worse. We know there are some impacts of the climate crisis that are already here and we're not going back. But we can do something about this. If we act now, we can stop the worst of the effects. So I think that's part of the message, is that we can be optimistic because we can do this together.
Absolutely, and there's obviously so much doom and gloom in this news cycle, so it's great to get that more optimistic perspective from you. But I want to say on a similar note, a new poll from the Department of Health, Bloomberg, and Johns Hopkins says that nearly 2/3 of Americans say they don't frequently discuss climate change, and that those that do mostly discuss its impacts on weather. Aside from weather, what are the other ways climate change is really impacting Americans?
One of the big two ways are your health and your wallet. One, the wildfire smoke, in addition to pollution and co-pollutants from power plants and other dirty burning of fossil fuels, among other things, they harm our health. So if you live near the power plant, you have bad air quality that causes asthma, that impacts your entire life, how you can attend school, etc. One is just your pocketbook, right? Our energy bills are too high because we're dependent on these fossil fuels, and there's a lot of risk around fossil fuels that we can't control. We need to move to more reliable, more affordable types of energy, so it doesn't cost so much.
There's so many, different effects. And, last year during the Canadian wildfires, I had never, breathed in that smoke or really been exposed to that. It was, eye-opening to see that impact on my health and those around me. On a different note, though, we hear a lot about something called last chance tourism. And this is where people travel to places threatened by climate change before it's too late. How does that result in more positive change and awareness?
Well, we are losing some of our most precious and spectacular natural resources and places. In particular, Pacific Islands, places in the Arctic, these are under threat. A lot of it's already happened, right? Look what's happened to our coral reefs. There's been so much bleaching. There's so many changes that are happening. So while I understand why people want to see these places, we have to be careful of the impact this tourism also has on these places. And we need to think again more about how can we actually address the root causes and stop this from happening. It's not just about fun and tourism. It's about wildlife. It's about people who live in these areas and their livelihoods and cultures.
I want to go back to the doom and gloom topic. You've said people tend to worry less about that doom and gloom we were talking about. That's 50 years away, and care more about the immediate concerns, how it's affecting them in the here and now. But why do you think people should be more concerned about the long-term effects?
Look, it is really, we really have to think about both. I mean, I understand that it's distressing to think about these long-term existential threats, but we have to be thinking about what's going to happen to our children, our grandchildren. What are we leaving for future generations? And if we don't act now, we're going to be leaving a world that is increasingly unstable, less livable, and won't have the type of lifestyles that I think we want for our children and the natural world, the preservation of the natural world. So these things are really important, but we also have to think about what can we do right now to address them.
Absolutely. You got to live in the present first. Raya Salter, thank you so much for your expertise.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much.